I'm Ronnie Eldridge. Welcome to Eldridge & Company. Even though New York City is already a collection of neighborhoods, some people in Brooklyn want a richer sense of community. Ken Macdonald is a founding member of the Brooklyncohousing, and he's my guest today. And welcome.
Thanks.
What do you mean when you talk about community?
For us, it's having more spontaneous interactions with people. Like, I have 2 young children, and pretty much every group that we are able to organize is organized ahead of time, like play dates and things like that. And what we want is to be able to get up in the morning and have some short interaction with somebody, and go down for breakfast and have a short interaction with somebody, and be able to just walk across the hall and have a small gathering with people in the community. And that sort of spontaneous thing, for me, that's what it is.
Is that like living in the country? I don't know. It just reminds me of, you know, when I was young, that people would just walk next door, or they'd go out and have that kind of stuff that you can't do anymore in the city. And all these play dates and everything is so, as you said, so organized.
It is.
So you see it as an exchange of feelings and ideas and everything, just on it's casual, but it's not casual, because you know these people quite well eventually.
By the time you build this thing, you know them very well.
So what are we talking about with co-housing? Let's explain that.
Well, you start with, you gather together families, 20, 30 households, and together you build a community before you even start building the place. And you have regular meetings, you get to know each other pretty well, and you have to figure out how to make decisions together. And we borrow heavily from the Quakers. We make consensus decisions. I know, you roll your eyes. And it's a little hard to imagine this working.
Yeah.
But you know, there's like 15 years of experience from over 100 communities in the United States now, and they all have a lot of workshops on how to run meetings and things like that. And the big decisions are made by consensus. Everybody has to agree to move forward. And we have a pretty elaborate system of colored cards when we go through discussions. You know, different colors mean different things, and we've gotten used to doing all that. And
it's interesting. It's very well organized. And I mean, this is, you're part of a larger group in a way. Your community is a satellite of something else, in a way?
We borrow their methods.
Their methods.
Yeah, we're not that much.
Right.
We're
Sounds
pretty
like
much our own
some
thing.
of the Alinsky type training for organizers. You know, there is a set way that you can do that.
Uh-huh.
You need to be trained, don't you, to lead a meeting that you're going to arrive at consensus?
You do. We weren't. We
But you've learned.
We did. We had to bring in. We've had a couple of weekend workshops to sort of help us with the rough spots, but we're pretty dedicated. It's a pretty amazing group who suddenly came together to do this, who are very dedicated to do this.
Did you know any of the people before?
I didn't know any of the people before.
Isn't that amazing?
Most of us didn't.
Who started it?
Alex Marshall and his wife. He works for the Regional Planning Association, and he has written a lot about the history of cities and how they grow and how cities live. And he and his wife just thought they wanted to try this. He's been thinking about it for years, and so they just had an informal meeting in their living room. And then they had a meeting at the local library, and then pretty soon we came along, and there were 4 households that put up the original seed money. That was a big step for the first 4 families to put up thousands of dollars.
How much did you have to pay?
Well, at the time it was $15,000 each.
That's a lot of money.
And there was no site, there was nothing. It was just from our interactions with each other and feeling like we think this is going to work.
Let's go back. To have consensus doesn't mean that everyone wants it.
Right.
It means that they defer to the majority opinion.
Yeah, you can have a range of agreement, but everybody who's a full member, and there's 2 levels of membership. Well, I'll say more about that in a little bit, but a full member has a red card, and if they absolutely feel that making this decision will injure the group in some way, then they use a red card. But it's not if they feel like they personally just don't want it.
Right.
So you have to really take that seriously, and it doesn't get used very often.
And that's a very interesting thing, because it's certainly important for people that you have in the group. I mean, if you had this judge who's still suing the cleaner about his pants, you remember? Did you read that in Washington or someplace? I don't. Suing them for it. They evidently lost his trousers, and it was thrown out of one court. And I read the other day it's going into another court. You don't need somebody like that. No.
It would be hard to come to the regular meetings and be part of this process and be somebody who was interested in breaking things down rather than building them up.
So you had your original 4, and then as you had these meetings, you got more people?
Yeah, so when you come to the meetings, we invite people to come to orientations and we talk about what we're doing. Then they come to one of our regular meetings where we run these with the cards and everything. And you sort of watch and see if you like us and see if you want to be a part of it. And then there's a level of membership called an associate member, which is a few $100s. And then you become part of the discussions and you can influence decisions, but you don't have a red card.
And does that mean that you're on a list that if you decide to come in, you can?
It's not a chronological type of thing exactly. It's not like you buy an order, but you become part of the group.
You're a whole part of the group.
Yeah, and you come to, then there's full membership is when you put in a certain percentage of what you think your unit is going to cost. That's many thousands of dollars. And so there's these two levels, associates and members, and the meeting happens with both of them in the room, but the members are sort of making the decisions and the associates are sort of in an outer circle, and other decisions we all gather together. That's been a lot of figuring out.
It's an interesting dynamic.
It is.
A whole study of dynamic. I mean, you're learning so many things while you're trying to find your house. It's great. So how many years have you been doing this?
It's been 18 months since they started.
Yeah. And there was a story in the Times that you had found a place and you were doing it, but I gather that's fallen through.
Yeah, we had a beautiful spot in Fort Greene, and we were going to build new townhouses, and we were going to renovate a church, and we were all madly in love with it. And we had a contract with it, and then we started to get back the costs of the full project, and it just was starting to get out of reach. So we canceled that contract and we started looking for new sites. But the good thing is that we started that project before the big collapse in October. And
so now you could.
Now, yeah, things just keep shifting. Now there's lots of places that just wouldn't have looked at us twice. Now we're kind of the best thing around. So we've got a lot of sites to pick from now.
Oh, that's really great. So what kind of sites are they? They're right in the middle of Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's our goal, is to be right near the park. This is where most of us live, near the food co-op, so I can walk to work. But that whole band around the park, we want to be close to the park. And there are warehouses, there are lots, there are places that have been almost completed by developers, and now they can't sell them all. So we come in as pre-sold group, and we're attractive. So
it's basically either renovated or new construction. You're not into the local single family houses or anything like that.
That just wouldn't work, and we need like 30 households to make it work.
Right.
That we're relying on the experience of the other
groups.
projects in the country of what the ideal size is.
Right.
If it gets much smaller than 20, it's a little too intimate, because if you have a lot of issues with one particular person, they're sort of right there.
Do you? Are there any that are done outside of New York City in urban areas?
Yeah, there's a bunch. There's 3 or 4, I think, in Seattle. There's some in D.C. There's I don't know about in Boston, but near Boston.
It's a very interesting website. It's
Thanks.
Your website, and then you link to other websites where you can see some of these developments, and it's really fascinating, and I hope people will do that. What's the website?
Brooklyncohousing.org. It's all one word. Thanks.
Terrific. So when it comes down to what kind of sinks you're going to have and what kind of stoves, how do you break that down?
The way you try and save money in co-housing, because what you end up with usually is market rate. Whatever the area is you build it in, at the time you build it, it tends to be about what new construction would cost in that area. And people often ask, why is that? Because you don't have a developer making a profit off of this. And the answer is the money that would have gone to the developer
Goes back to
Yeah, it goes back. For one thing, it's a very complex process to have all these people designing this thing together. So that could be a little bit more expensive. But also when you come to a decision like a sink, and it's for you, and it's for a place that you want to live in for 20 years, you tend to start selecting better and better materials, and so you sort of spend it that way.
Yeah.
That's been the experience of people.
So you're going to have market rate, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
That's
seems to be
scary.
changing every day. We don't know. We don't know what it's going to be. I mean, in Brooklyn now, it's $600, $700, $800, $900 a square foot. It could be. We don't know what it's going to be. It depends on what site we choose.
And the development will have different sizes. It's a
units,
mix.
the different. Yeah, it's going to be from studios to 4 bedrooms, probably, at least 3 bedrooms.
So you really think this is going to happen?
It's looking pretty certain at this point.
That's very good.
We have 15 fully invested households, people who put in, who've chosen a unit of whatever this ends up being, and have put in the money. And we have 30 associates who are considering and sort of waiting to see where we select the next site. And I mean, the reason why we're sort of holding it at 15 right now is when you're trying to pick a site with 45 households, it's almost impossible. Yeah, and 15 is probably the biggest group of people that have tried to pick a site in the history of co-housing. It's usually held to 7 to 10. But we grew because we thought we had a site, and then now we're looking for a new site.
Did you get the money back when you canceled the contract?
Yeah, it was
good. Are people nicer to you because it is such an experimental kind of thing?
That hasn't been our experience. You mean with developers? Or
yeah, with everything, with the developers, the
not
owners.
Not so much. People are very.
It's still
I don't
business-like,
know. Yeah, it's pretty business-like. I mean, it's taking them a while to get to know who we are and that we're for real. I mean, it was nice to have an article in the New York Times in the real estate section that made us pretty valid.
Pretty important, right?
and we've collected money. We have money. We can show we have money. We can show we have real interests.
So when somebody wants to discuss, who's looking for the sites? Everybody?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have committees. Nobody wants to do all this work all the time. So we've broken up into a site search committee, and we have a group of people working on the legal stuff, and they report back to the group during the meetings. So committees.
So the people you're working with outside know who to contact. I mean, it's not that they have to contact an anonymous group with a lot of people. We
hired a consultant, Chris Scott Hansen, who wrote one of the books on co-housing and does this a lot from Seattle. And he's just very good at explaining to developers, explaining to banks who we are and how we operate. And that needs somebody to do that because people just don't really know what to make of us initially.
Yeah.
So,
are you a bunch of hippies?
Some of us are ex-hippies. I wish we were a little bit more hippie. We're just really not. We're pretty straight-laced. I wish we were a little lighter, actually.
Oh, no. All right. You're just, are you young, collectively?
We're not. I mean, people tend to be a little bit older, so they've got some resource, and maybe they've got their home. Some people are renters, some people have their own homes, some people are ready to retire. Some of the younger people have had to lean on family members for help and the down payment and stuff.
So it's a range.
It's
single,
a range.
It's everything.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be mostly families with young children because we just thought that's what people would be attracted to, is having a sort of a courtyard and kids being able to play. There's 3 actual members with children right now.
Isn't that interesting?
Everybody else is single or 2-family households.
So that must not please everybody who has children.
It's fine. No, it's fine. It's just very interesting to have that many single people interested in being in our lives and interested in getting to know our children.
It's interesting how children. I was telling you before that we had a housing.
I know, that's amazing.
In the 60s. And it all started because of the kids playing on the playground. You know, my son thought the tree belonged to him. And I thought, I can't go through this with another child. It's going to be too much. Anyway, so we had a group from the playground that went looking for houses in the West Side Urban Renewal area. And then we combined the backyards, and we had a great place for kids to play.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
I mean, we were looking for vacations that would work for our family, and we started to go to...
That's another thing. I wanted to do this kind of thing in a vacation place.
Right. Well, there's...
Catskills or something.
Yeah. These things called bungalow colonies that were all over. We would go to one of those upstate and just had the greatest vacations because the kids could just run out the door.
Absolutely. It's terrific.
Yeah.
It's such a sensible form of housing. And it's so sensible for many different things. I mean, it's very sensible for older people. Mm-hmm. And I think some of the co-housing projects are for people 55 and over or something, aren't they?
There are. Although
I like mixed ones. I think people 55 and over would like to see some kids. I mean,
you
know. But I remember, I mean, there are variations. There's an organization in New York that if you're older, an elderly person, and you live in a large apartment alone, they will match another older person to come and live with you. But take that a step further and say, you rent a 4-bedroom apartment or you own a 4-bedroom apartment. And you've got 4 adults living there, and they have 1 kitchen, and they can have 1 helper, and they can so much better live. It just makes so much sense.
It makes a lot of sense, yeah. And there's also a lot of, what would you call it, lateral movement within communities. Like when a family gets smaller as people grow up and move out, then they'll trade with somebody else who's going the other way. So there's a lot of movement that way.
Right. It's such an interesting thing. So you think you're going to find a site? You're looking at several sites.
I'm pretty sure. Can I tell you about the common spaces that we
Yes,
have?
absolutely.
So everybody has a unit, which has a kitchen and a living room and bedrooms, just like anybody's unit. Although the kitchen's
And
probably
bathrooms.
pretty small, and bathrooms, and then the whole community shares a big community kitchen, big industrial community kitchen. Although we've been warned against too industrial, it should still be sort of homey, and a big enough space for maybe 2/3 of the community to get together and eat together at a time. And then we'll probably have 2 sittings. We'll have the people who come home from work and want to eat, and we'll have families who want to eat early, and then we'll have people who get home late after work and want to eat then. So that's what it looks like. We'll have 2 sittings. And then we don't have a site now, but in previous design iterations, we've had big children's playrooms. We've had, for me, a completely soundproof music room down in the basement. We've had places with parking. We've had sort of an adults-only place for people who are tired of things like that.
And you have some artists in this group too, so
We
you
do.
must have
So
some artist studio space, no?
Well,
Or they're not talking as much as you.
I know, I was a little loud about that one. We did. We designed, we have one artist who works with very large murals, and we designed a space for her, but that site is not our site anymore. So, but it's amazing to watch how, when people notice that there is a need in the group, like that space, that it's really in everybody's interest to figure out a way to make it happen.
So that's,
And
yeah.
It's really
Now,
exciting.
you also, though, maintain the building. I mean, you have tasks.
You do. We're not yet, but we will.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a common charge that we have to figure out how much of that,
Right.
we need to hire somebody to come in and do, or how much we can do ourselves. And that'll probably depend on who's in the group when we get there,
Yeah.
like who wants to do what. But yeah.
Some of the groups that are more rural or suburban have the landscaping and all of that, and they
Yeah,
do,
share the
right?
lawnmower, yeah.
Now, if you're supposed to cook the dinner, is that how it works? That several people cook dinner several
Yeah.
times a month or something for everybody?
Yeah. I
Can
visited-
you also, could you just provide the dinner? I mean, would you be able to order in if you were the sponsor, if you paid for it?
Order in. You could do whatever you want,
Yeah,
Ronnie, if you come
right.
visit us. I don't know. Everybody has sort of a different meal plan. One of the things we're really worried about is building a really beautiful shared kitchen
And then
and nobody uses it. So we've been talking to people about how they use it and what really
Right.
works.
That's
And
interesting. And the consultant leads all these discussions?
no, we do it.
this is
He
you.
just comes in now and then and sort of helps us.
Yeah.
And it's mostly with working with the developers and with all these negotiations, things we don't really know anything about.
Yeah.
So.
So you said you had a music studio. Is that what you basically are? A musician?
At this point, I think of myself as a musician and a broccoli thrower. In most mornings, I just unload trucks of produce at the food co-op with other people.
That's the Park Slope Food Co.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit because that's fascinating.
Okay.
Is it? Are some of the people that are in your group from there?
There is one other colleague, one other staff person who's
And have
a
you?
member of this group now.
And
Yeah.
have any of the members of the co-op come to your meetings? They should be interested in that.
It's lots of crossover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how big is the Park Slope Food Co-op?
It's very close to 15,000 members now.
That's amazing.
It is ridiculous.
And they buy food from you once a week or how often? They can come in anytime. It's like a store.
It's a store. It's a grocery store. Come in anytime.
And so
Opens
everything
at
is
6 o'clock in the
stocked?
morning on weekends. Yeah.
And what do you carry?
It is the best organic produce that you can get in Brooklyn. It's really
Yeah. Is that what it
great
is
selection.
exclusively?
No, there's lots. There's meat, there's
Household?
beer, there's
Yeah.
household things.
Are they organic too?
As much as we can do. Yeah.
It's so interesting. So
Yeah.
you're working there.
I'm working there. I mean, the idea there is that everybody owns it, and we pay, 20% above cost across the board. So we have to change the prices every day, basically. Whatever we paid for it, we charge 20% more. So
That's great.
it's a very different model than most grocery
And who
stores.
does the buying?
Different people
They're
have.
buyers?
Yeah.
So what kind of a family did you come from that you're involved in all these things?
Not one that would have ended up in this. My father, like I said, he worked as a computer systems analyst. His father was a Baptist minister in Brooklyn and Connecticut. My mother's parents were in the Foreign Service. My grandfather on my mother's side was consul general to the United States and traveled all the time. And my grandmother sort of grew up in China and Spain and all over the place. that was sort of all before I came along. That
Yeah.
was the history of it. And my father died when I was 17 when we moved back to this country. And I don't know what drove me to this, really. It's mostly the co-op, I think, from seeing how that worked.
Yeah. What are some of the colleagues' backgrounds? Are they the similar?
We have a few people are sort of nearing retirement. One's retiring postal worker. There are teachers. There are people who are documentary editors. There are...
Is it textile design?
A textile designer.
Did
You've read the biographies, right? I don't know if she's still in the group.
I don't know. Oh, but it's all different kind of people, and people
very much
that are just.
There's people that get paid, by the hour. There's people who, like I say, are close to retirement. It's pretty just working people. It's pretty
So,
normal.
do you consider co-housing part of a co-op movement?
I see it more. I don't know about the co-op movement, but I see it as groups of people really taking back control over their immediate environment. Like what I would love to see happen with this is have this sort of be an umbrella organization. The hardest part is getting space to meet in, really, that will work for families. That's been the hard part about us keeping families with children, because we have 2 children, another family has 1 young child.
And how did the 2 of you come?
We've just stuck it out. I mean, we initially met in daycare centers where we'd sit on the little kids' stools and they would just play around us. We've started to rent space next to the meeting room so that they can play there. But it's a big issue. It's really hard for families to stick it out with us.
Right.
And where was I going with that?
I asked if it was part of the co-op movement, and you said it's more of the community part of it that you like. Is it controlling your own community?
I think so, and just the experience of making decisions with a group and seeing how that works, and seeing that the group actually doesn't end up making a decision that is against your interests all the time, the way it seems like it's going to, that it ends up moving in a direction that was better for you in the first place. That's just been an amazing thing for me to watch.
Yeah. I am also, when I was in high school many years ago, I went to the High School of Music and Art, and we had a student co-op where we sold art and music supplies. We ran it. We bought wholesale. You brought your membership. And it always seemed to me it was absolutely the best form of way of doing business. That I don't understand why more of us haven't done it. And then, of course, you get into these co-ops now.
Well, that's
with
why.
the boards, and then it becomes a terrible mess, right?
A lot of people who come to the group just have that on their shoulders. They
Yeah.
look at us and they say, well, we live in a co-op and this is our experience with it, and how is this going to be different, and I don't want any part of it. And I don't really know what to say about that. I've never really lived in a co-op. My wife has, but I think it's the consensus decision making.
Yeah.
It's learning how to do that.
Yeah.
We don't really have a co-op board. When you decide to join, we don't have a vetting of your past. It's you come and talk to a group of us. We say what the requirements are, which are not that much, but you have to be able to prove some financial ability, and you have to have been in the group and shown that you're interested in participating with the group. But then really it's your decision. If you go through that talk, it's called a clearness meeting, which is from a Quaker tradition, and you decide that it makes sense for you, then you can join. Yeah.
And then you decide all these decisions that a co-op board usually decides.
Yeah.
And so
I think legally we have to have a board, but it'll just be sort of on paper.
It's interesting because now you have a president. You're about ready to have a president who also seems to want to create consensus.
Yeah, it's so amazing.
Isn't it? Is your group politically active?
I hope we become. That's one of the things I really like about it, is once you go through this process, and it ties to the spontaneous interactions with people, just your daily life, the way you live your life, if you're doing it as a group, there's a way that you become a political entity where you have shared values. And I can see if groups of people are taking back control of their immediate environment this way, they will actually act in these powerful groups. I can see it being really powerful that way.
Did you have any Republicans in your group?
I know, nobody said that they are.
They didn't have the courage.
We were hoping somebody would.
Did they work in the Obama campaign? Did you guys all do?
Not as a group, but a bunch of us did.
Individually.
Yeah, sure.
So ideally, you're going to find a place in Brooklyn
that
is going to have room for common space.
Yeah.
Which is sizable. How many square feet do you think you need for that?
You figure about 30 units of sort of average 1,000 square feet each or so.
Yeah. And then for the common space, what do you think?
Between 3,000 and 6,000 square feet of space.
Right.
For that.
And will it naturally form that that'll be in the same building in New York?
Yeah, it'll be in the same
Yeah.
building. It'll probably be, you probably walk in. There's a lot of sort of architectural guidelines for doing this kind of thing that lead people to, not lead the community to
Into
sort of,
the center.
yeah, you have the active part of the units, the kitchens, the living rooms, face in towards the common areas, which is sort of opposite from most
Yeah.
luxury condos. So that when you're in the common area, you sort of see the activity of the community happening, and you can just reach out the window and say whatever. And there are little cues that you can develop if you're living in the community, which indicate whether you're inviting
People
interaction
in.
or not.
Yeah, that's
It can
interesting.
be very simple, like
Yeah.
you just have the door open a crack or
Yeah.
something, but you just develop that kind of
That's great.
interaction. Yeah.
Well, I hope that it really works out. It's going to sound
Thank you.
great.
I think
And if
it'll-
people, again, if they want to
Yes.
know something about it, they go to your website, which is
Brooklincohousing.org. And there's in the top right of the screen, there's an emailing list, which is good to sign up for. You'll get the information.
That's just very good. I hope you get out of it everything you want in it.
Thanks, Ronnie.
And that people live happily together, and that more people decide that's the way to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any people you'd like to hear and topics you'd like us to explore? Please let me know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.